Grace Harper's scream cut through dawn like a blade through silk. Not surprise. Not pain. Acceptance. The sound of a woman who'd learned hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. Flint Morrison's hand found his Colt before his heart caught up. 5 years he'd walked past suffering. 5 years since Catherine's death taught him that caring meant losing. But that scream, that particular surrender, it shattered something in him he'd thought long dead. His horse didn't wait for his decision. It simply moved. Hook continuation. Before we ride into this storm together, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button. This story gets darker before it finds light, and I need to know you're still with me when it does. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Grace's story travels. Because what happened next in Redemption Creek, Montana, 1878? It matters. It still matters. Now, let's go back to that morning. The sound reached Flint 3 blocks before he saw it. Not the scream that had died. Worse. The silence after. The kind that meant people were watching, choosing not to see. Main Street stretched empty despite 30 souls crowding its edges. They pressed against storefronts like shadows trying to disappear into wood. Mrs. Weatherby stood in her shop doorway, hand over her mouth. Pastor Reynolds clutched his Bible but kept his distance. Even Deputy Cole, the man who'd once taken a bullet meant for Flint at Blackwater Creek, even Cole looked at the ground. Victor Harper dragged his wife from their painted house by her hair. Flint's horse stopped. He hadn't pulled the reins. Grace didn't fight. That's what broke through Flint's 5 years of careful numbness. She didn't fight. Just moved where she was pulled like a woman who'd learned resistance cost more than surrender. 3 little girls screamed from the porch. The oldest couldn't be more than 9, held her sister's back with small hands that shook. Victor's fist connected with Grace's jaw. She dropped into mud frozen from last night's cold. The impact made a sound like a book slamming shut. 3 daughters. Victor's voice carried across the silence. 3 worthless girls, and you can't give me 1 son. He pulled back his boot. Flint was moving before thought caught up. His boots hit dirt. The Colt stayed holstered. Some things you didn't need a gun for. Harper. Victor turned. His eyes were red-rimmed pupils blown. Whiskey and rage, Flint knew that particular mix. His own father had worn the same look before Flint was tall enough to hit back. Stay out of family business, Morrison. Victor's hand was already bruised. This wasn't the first time today. Maybe not even the second. Stopped being family business when you brought it to the street. Flint walked forward slow, non-threatening, the way you approached a wounded animal likely to bite. Mrs. Harper, you're coming with me. The street inhaled, held it. Grace raised her head. Blood leaked from her split lip, mixing with mud on her cheek. Her left eye was swelling shut, but her right eye it fixed on Flint with something between terror and impossible hope. You'll hang for this, she whispered. Maybe. Flint extended his hand. But not today. Victor moved fast for a drunk man. His hand went to the knife at his belt. He'd gutted pigs with that knife. Everyone knew it. Everyone had seen the pigs. Flint's Colt appeared in his hand like magic. He didn't remember drawing. Didn't need to. 5 years of silence hadn't dulled the muscle memory of violence. The gun barrel pressed against Victor's sternum, cold metal through a sweat-stained shirt. Don't. Flint's voice carried no inflection. Statement of fact, not threat. Don't make me. She's my wife. Victor's breath came in gasps. Fear or fury, hard to tell the difference. The law, Cole. Flint didn't take his eyes off Victor. You still owe me from Blackwater Creek. Silence stretched. Then boots on wood. Deputy Cole stepped down from the sheriff's office porch. Young face, old eyes. A man who'd seen too much too soon. Flint, I can't. You can. Flint's gun never wavered. Or I remind everyone what really happened there. How you froze. How it wasn't Indians that burned that family's cabin. Cole's face went white. The crowd shifted, interested now. Whispers starting. Flint, please. Choose Cole. Right now. Choose what kind of man you are. The deputy's hand moved to his badge. Touched it. For a moment, Flint thought he'd have to shoot through 2 men instead of 1. Then Cole's hand dropped. Victor Harper. Cole's voice cracked, but held. You're causing a public disturbance. Need you to step back. It wasn't much. Wasn't arrest or justice or anything close to right, but it was enough. Victor spat. The glob landed near Flint's boot. You're both dead men. This town will forget by Sunday. Flint holstered his Colt. Extended his hand again to Grace. Ma'am? She stared at his hand like it might bite. 5 seconds passed. 10. The girls on the porch had gone silent, watching with identical wide eyes. Grace's hand, small, calloused, trembling, touched his. Flint pulled her to her feet. She swayed. He caught her elbow. Through the thin fabric of her dress he felt nothing but bone. Can you ride? Grace's voice broke. She tried again. The girls. Flint looked at the porch. 3 little souls huddled together. The oldest met his eyes. Something in her face, fierce and terrified and desperate all at once, it reminded him of Catherine holding their newborn daughter. The daughter who'd lived 4 days. The daughter they'd named Lily. Bring them. The oldest girl grabbed her sister's hands. They ran. Not to their mother. To Flint. Like he was safety. Like he was hope. Like he was anything other than a man who'd spent 5 years trying to die without the inconvenience of actually pulling the trigger. The smallest one, couldn't be more than 3, looked up at him with eyes the color of creek water in spring. Are you an angel? Something in Flint's chest cracked. No, sweetheart, just stubborn. He lifted Grace onto his horse. She weighed nothing. Less than nothing. How long since she'd eaten a full meal? The girls climbed up. They knew horses. That was something. Victor lurched forward. You can't. Flint turned. Drew. The Colt barrel pressed against Victor's forehead this time. Touch them again. Flint said, voice flat as winter ice. And law won't matter. Geography won't matter. God himself won't be able to hide you. We clear. Victor's bladder let go. The dark stains spread down his trousers. Some men in the crowd laughed. Most looked away. Flint mounted behind the girls. Grace sat in front holding the youngest. The middle child pressed against his chest. The oldest gripped the saddle horn with white knuckles. The crowd parted, not willingly, reluctantly, like water forced around stone. As they rode out, Victor's voice followed. She's my property, Morrison. The law says so. I'll come for what's mine. Flint didn't look back, but his hands shook on the reins. Not from fear, from something breaking open inside him. Something he'd sealed shut the day he buried Catherine and Lily on the hill behind his cabin. The day he'd stopped being James Morrison and became Flint hard, cold dead inside. The woman whispered through broken teeth. Why? He had no answer. Not one he could speak. So he said the only true thing he knew. Needed doing. They rode in silence. 5 miles of open prairie between town and his ranch. Wind cut across brown grass. The temperature dropped as the sun climbed higher, that particular cruelty of Montana spring that promised warmth, then delivered frost. The middle girl finally spoke. Is Mama going to die? Grace's body went rigid. Flint felt it through the saddle. No, ma'am, he said. Polite. Like he was talking to a duchess instead of a terrified child. Nobody's dying today. That's what Papa said before he hurt Mama last time. The girl's voice carried no emotion. Just fact. The way a child speaks who's learned hope is dangerous. Flint had no answer for that. What could he say? That adults kept promises, that fathers protected instead of harmed, that the world was fair, all lies. So he said, "I'm not your papa." The girl considered this. Good. They rode on. His ranch appeared as the sun touched its peak. Calling it a ranch was generous. A half-finished cabin. A barn twice the cabin size. Fence posts marking intentions more than reality. The skeleton of a dream he'd stopped building the day Catherine died. Grace's shoulders sagged when she saw it. Flint knew what she was thinking. This was sanctuary. This collection of unfinished wood and broken intentions. But she didn't speak. What choice did she have? Behind them lay certainty, pain, fear, eventually death. Ahead lay unknown. Unknown beat certain misery. Barely. But it did. Flint dismounted, helped the girls down one by one. Grace slid from the saddle and her knees buckled. He caught her. She flinched at his touch. Easy. He kept his voice soft, the way you talked to wounded animals. You're safe here. Safe. Grace laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. There's no such thing. Maybe she was right. Probably she was right. But Flint had made a choice back in town. A choice that meant something. A choice that might kill them all. He'd made it anyway. The cabin held one room. A bed he hadn't slept in for months. A table with 3 legs and a board propped under the 4th corner. A fireplace cold since last winter. The stone hearth where Catherine had stood hand on her swollen belly, talking about curtains and cradles, and the daughter they'd named Lily. Grace stood in the doorway, daughters pressed against her skirts. She looked around, evaluated, calculated escape routes. Flint knew the look. He'd worn it enough himself. "You take the cabin," he said, gathering blankets from a trunk. "I sleep in the barn." "Why?" Grace's voice was raw. "Why help us? What do you want?" He couldn't meet her eyes. "Nothing. Men don't do nothing for nothing. Maybe they should start." He left before she could question further. Crossed to the barn with his blankets and the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on his back. 4, counting the mother. The barn was familiar. He'd been sleeping here for months. Years, maybe. The cabin held too many ghosts. Catherine kneading bread. Catherine humming hymns. Catherine's water breaking on the floor he'd built with his own hands. Catherine screaming for hours. The doctor making him choose save the wife or save the baby. Him freezing. Unable to speak. Unable to choose. The doctor choosing for him. Choosing wrong. Both dying anyway. Flint spread his blankets in the stall where his mare usually stood. She was in the paddock now. Through the barn wall he heard sounds from the cabin. Voices. Movement. Life. He closed his eyes. Tried to sleep. Couldn't. What had he done? Brought a woman and 3 children to an unfinished cabin in the middle of nowhere. Victor would come. The law would come. Maybe the whole damn town would come. And then what? He had no plan. No strategy. Just the memory of that scream. That particular sound of surrender. The sound Catherine had made near the end when the fever took hold, and she stopped fighting. Maybe that's all anyone needed. A reason to stand. A reason to say not today. Not on my watch. Not while I'm still breathing. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it wasn't. Outside, wolves howled. Close. Too close. They'd been getting bolder as spring wore on. Hunger made everything desperate. Flint checked his rifle, checked his Colt, checked the Winchester he kept loaded by the barn door. If Victor came tonight, he'd find Flint ready. If the wolves came, same. If something inside him, the part that had been dead for 5 years, if that came back to life and demanded he feel again, demanded he care again, demanded he risk loving and losing again. Flint had no weapon for that. Morning came cold. Flint woke to silence. No, not silence. Something worse. The absence of threat. The illusion of peace. He rose, crossed to the cabin, knocked. No answer. His heart kicked. Were they gone? Had Grace run during the night? Taken the girls, and the door cracked open. The oldest girl peered out. She studied his face with an intensity that made him want to step back. Mama says you can come in, but slowly, and keep your hands where she can see them. Smart woman. Smart girl. Flint pushed the door open slow, hands visible, non-threatening. Grace stood by the cold fireplace. She'd found Catherine's old dress in the trunk. It hung loose on her frame. Her face looked worse in daylight, purples and blacks and yellows spreading like a sunset made of violence. But her eyes were clear, calculating, a woman making decisions. "We need rules," she said. "All right. You don't come in without knocking, ever. Even if we're screaming, even if you hear something that scares you, you knock and you wait." "Agreed." "You don't touch me. You don't touch my girls, not for any reason. Not discipline, not comfort, not anything." "Understood." "If you change your mind about whatever this is, you tell me. You give me warning. You don't just throw us out in the night." Flint nodded, waited. There was more. He could see it in her face. "And if Victor comes?" Grace's voice finally cracked. "If he comes and you can't stop him. If the law says I have to go back, you promise me something." "What?" "You take my girls, you keep them, you don't let them go back to that house. Promise me." The request hit Flint like a bullet. Take her children, raise 3 little girls, him, a man who'd failed his own daughter, who'd let her die before she'd lived. "Ma'am, I can't. Promise me." Grace stepped forward, her hands balled into fists. "Or we leave right now. I'd rather die with my daughters in the wilderness than watch them grow up learning that men can do anything they want. Anything. And no one stops them." The oldest girl moved to her mother's side. "Mama, please." "Quiet, Abigail." Grace's eyes never left Flint's face. "Promise. Or we go." Flint looked at the 3 girls. Abigail fierce and terrified. The middle one, he didn't even know her name yet. The smallest, still feverish from yesterday's cold ride watching him with those creek water eyes. Lily would have been 6 now. Would she have looked like them? Would she have been brave like Abigail? Would she have needed protecting? "I promise," Flint heard himself say. "But it won't come to that." "How do you know?" "Because I'm not letting him take you." Grace studied him, looking for the lie, the crack in the armor, the moment when his nobility would fade and reveal the rot underneath. She wouldn't find it. Not because Flint was noble, but because he had nothing left to lose. A man with nothing to lose was the most dangerous kind. "All right," Grace finally said. "Then I suppose we're staying." "Suppose you are." The middle girl tugged her mother's dress. "Mama, I'm hungry." Grace's face crumpled. "I know, baby. I know." "I've got supplies," Flint said quickly. "Not much, but enough. I'll get breakfast started." He moved to the fireplace, started building a fire from kindling he'd cut months ago. His hands remembered the work, even if his heart had forgotten why it mattered. Grace watched him like a hawk watches a snake. "You know how to cook?" she asked. "Enough not to starve." "Let me." She moved beside him. Not close. Careful distance maintained. "I'll earn our keep. Cooking, cleaning, mending. I won't be a burden." "You're not a burden." "Then what am I?" Flint paused. The kindling caught. Small flame growing. He fed it slowly. Patient. The way you built anything worth keeping slow and steady, and giving it room to breathe. "You're someone who needed help," he finally said. "I'm someone who needed to give it. Maybe that's enough." Grace made a sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe we're both just fools who'll regret this come nightfall." She was probably right. But the fire was growing now, light and warmth spreading. The girls drew closer to it, hands extended. seeking heat, seeking safety. Flint watched them. Something in his chest, that sealed-off place where his heart used to live, it shifted, just slightly. Like frozen earth acknowledging spring might eventually come. Maybe regret would come at nightfall. But right now, in this moment, 3 little girls were warming their hands by a fire he'd built. Right now, that was enough. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it the smell of distant rain. And underneath that, something else. The scent of wolves. Still hungry, still circling, still coming. The fire crackled while Grace made breakfast from supplies that should have run out months ago. Flint watched her move around the cabin, careful, efficient, like a woman who'd learned to be invisible while working. Her daughters sat at the table, silent. Too silent. Children that age should be noisy, should be fighting over who sat where, should be complaining about being hungry. These 3 just waited, hands folded, eyes down. Grace set plates in front of them. Beans and cornbread. Not much, but hot. "Thank you, Mama," they said in unison, rehearsed, automatic. "Eat slow," Grace instructed. "Make it last." Flint stepped forward. "There's more if they want it." Grace's head snapped up. "We won't take charity we can't repay." "It's not charity, it's breakfast. Everything's charity when you own nothing." Her voice carried an edge. "When your husband controls every cent, every scrap of food, every—" She stopped, looked at her daughters, softened her tone. "We'll earn what we eat, what?" The smallest girl, little Beth, he'd heard Grace call her, looked up at Flint with those creek water eyes. "Are you gonna hurt Mama now for talking back?" The question hit harder than Victor's fist would have. Flint knelt, brought himself to the child's level. "No, ma'am. People can disagree in this house without anybody getting hurt. That's how it works here." Beth studied him. "That's not how it worked at home." "I know, sweetheart. But this isn't there. This is different." "How?" Flint had no answer. How did you explain safety to a child who'd never known it? How did you promise protection when the world kept proving protection was a lie? "I guess you'll have to wait and see," he finally said. "Give me a chance to show you." Beth considered this. Then she held out her hand. In her palm sat half a piece of cornbread. "You should eat too. Mama says men get angry when they're hungry." Something in Flint's throat closed up. He took the cornbread. "Thank you, Miss Beth. That's mighty kind." The middle girl Charlotte Grace had called her once she spoke without looking up. "We have to be kind. Papa says that's all we're good for, being pretty and kind and quiet." "Papa says a lot of things," Abigail muttered. "Abigail." Grace's voice carried warning. "Well, he does. And most of it's mean, and most of it's wrong, and—" Abigail's voice cracked. "And I'm glad Mr. Morrison shot him." "I didn't shoot him," Flint corrected gently. "Just encouraged him to step back." "You should have shot him." "Abigail Harper. That's enough." Grace's hands shook as she served her own plate. "We don't talk like that. We don't wish harm on people, even when they've harmed us." "Why not?" "Because that's how we stay human. That's how we stay better than—" Grace stopped, set down her plate, walked to the window, stared out at nothing. Flint watched her shoulders rise and fall, breathing too fast, panic starting. He'd seen it before, in soldiers after battle, in women after violence, the body remembering what the mind tried to forget. "Mrs. Harper," he kept his voice level, "you should eat. It's been more than a day since—" "Don't tell me what to do." She spun, eyes wild. "Don't tell me I should eat or sleep or feel grateful or—" Her breath hitched. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "It's all right." "It's not all right. Nothing's all right. We're here in your house eating your food and you don't even know us, and Victor will come and—" She pressed her hand to her mouth, holding back something bigger than words. Flint stood slowly, kept his distance. He comes, I'll handle it. How you think one man can stand against the whole town, against the law, against... Yes. The certainty in his voice stopped her. She stared at him, looking for the crack, the doubt, the moment when pretty words would crumble into reality. Why? Grace whispered. Why would you do that? We're nothing to you. Flint looked at the three girls, Abigail watching him with fierce hope, Charlotte drawing pictures and spilled salt on the table, Beth clutching the wooden spoon like a talisman against darkness. My daughter's name was Lily, he said. Words he hadn't spoken in 5 years. She lived 4 days. My wife Catherine lived 3 days after that. Fever took them both. I brought them to this hard land, killed them with my dream of a ranch. He met Grace's eyes. So when I heard you scream yesterday morning when I saw him drag you into that street, I couldn't walk past. Not again. Not when I had a choice this time. Grace's face crumpled. I'm not your wife. They're not your daughter. I know. You can't save us to make up for losing them. I know that too. Then what is this? Flint had no answer, not one that made sense, so he said the only true thing he knew. It's a man who stopped living 5 years ago, finding a reason to start again, even if it kills him. Silence filled the cabin. Outside a crow called, harsh and lonely. Abigail broke the quiet. I think that's the saddest thing I ever heard. Flint almost smiled. Probably is. But also the bravest. Now he did smile. Just a little. First time in years. Don't know about that. I do, Abigail said. Being sad and being brave at the same time, that's the hardest kind of brave there is. Grace made a sound. Half laugh, half sob. She sat at the table, picked up her fork, took a bite, chewed, swallowed, like it hurt. All right, she said. All right, we'll stay. For now, until we figure out what happens next. That's all I'm asking. They ate in silence. Not comfortable, but not hostile either. Just 5 people in a cabin sharing a meal, pretending the world outside had forgotten they existed. It hadn't. The sound of hoofbeats came around noon. Single rider, moving fast. Flint was outside mending fence when he heard it. His hand found his Colt before his mind registered threat. Old habits, the ones that kept you alive when kindness would get you killed. Grace appeared in the cabin doorway, face pale. Is it? Get inside. Bar the door. Don't open it unless I say. She obeyed without argument. The door closed. He heard the heavy beam slide into place. The rider crested the hill. Not Victor, female, riding astride in trousers, hat pulled low. As she got closer, Flint recognized her. Clara Blackwood, from the saloon. Catherine's friend from before, from when Catherine was alive and the world made sense. Clara reined in her horse 20 feet away. Smart, outside pistol range, outside grabbing range. A woman who'd learned caution the hard way. Morrison. Clara. She studied him. You look like hell. You look like you rode hard to tell me something I already know. Victor's rallying men, plans to come get his wife back. Tomorrow, maybe tonight. Let him come. He's got the sheriff with him, and Pastor Reynolds, and maybe 12 others. You planning to shoot your way through 15 men? Flint checked his Colt. Checked the Winchester leaning against the fence post. If I have to. Clara laughed, hard and bitter. Catherine always said you had more honor than sense. Guess she was right. The name hit him like a fist. He hadn't heard anyone speak it in years. People in town acted like Catherine had never existed. Like mentioning the dead would summon ghosts. Don't, he said. Don't what? Don't say her name. Don't remind you that she was my friend too. that I held her hand while she died because you couldn't bear to watch. Clara. She'd be ashamed of you. You know, the way you've been living, or not living, hiding out here like a wounded animal waiting to die. You finished. No. Clara dismounted, walked closer, still outside grabbing range, but near enough to see his eyes. Catherine would also be proud as hell of what you did yesterday, standing up to Victor, protecting that woman and her girls. That's the James Morrison she married, the one who gave a damn about something other than his own pain. Flint looked away. I'm not doing this for Catherine. I know, you're doing it because it needs doing, because that's who you are when you stop trying to die. She paused. That little girl in there, the youngest one, she's got a fever again. Heard it from Mrs. Weatherby, who heard it from the preacher's wife who saw you ride out yesterday. Beth. Her name's Beth. Beth needs medicine. Real medicine, not whiskey and prayers. I brought some. Clara pulled a wrapped bundle from her saddlebag. Laudanum for pain, willow bark for fever, clean bandages. It's not much, but it's what I could get without raising questions. Flint took the bundle. What do I owe you? Nothing. Clara, it's not for you, it's for Catherine. She'd want those girls protected, so I'm protecting them. That's all. She mounted her horse, started to turn, stopped. Morrison, when Victor comes, and he will come, you need to understand something. He's not coming for his wife. He's coming for his property. In his mind, there's no difference. You took what's his. He'll kill you for it if he can. Law will back him. Then I'll die. And those girls, that woman, what happens to them when you're dead? Flint had no answer. Clara's voice softened. Make a plan, James. Don't just be brave. Be smart. Catherine deserves that much. Those girls deserve that much. She kicked her horse. I'll try to slow them down. Buy you maybe a day. Use it. She rode off, dust trail marking her path back to town. Flint stood alone in the yard holding medicine for a child who wasn't his, protecting a woman he barely knew, making choices that would probably get him killed. Catherine would have hated this plan, would have called him reckless and noble and too damn stubborn for his own good. She would have been right. He walked back to the cabin, knocked. It's me. The door opened. Grace stood there, knife in hand. One of his kitchen knives. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. Who was it? Friend. Brought medicine for Beth. He handed over the bundle. And a warning. Victor's coming. Tomorrow or tonight. Grace's face went blank. The knife clattered to the floor. Then we run. Right now. Take the girls and... No. You can't fight 15 men. Maybe not. But I can make them pay for every inch of ground, make it cost more than they're willing to spend. And when you're dead, when they drag me back, and he... Grace's voice broke. You don't know what he'll do. You don't know what he's capable of. Then tell me. She looked at her daughters. They'd gone silent, listening, learning that safety was temporary, and monsters were patient. Not in front of them, Grace whispered. Flint nodded. Abigail, take your sisters to the barn. Show them where the chickens nest. Teach them how to gather eggs. Abigail stood, old beyond her years. You're planning something. I'm planning to keep you safe. Will it work? Honest question. Deserved an honest answer. I don't know. Abigail took her sister's hands, led them outside. The door closed behind them. Grace sagged against the table. He broke my arm once, twisted it until it snapped. Told the doctor I fell. The doctor knew. Everyone knew. No one said a word. Flint stayed silent. Let her talk. He locked me in the root cellar for 2 days after Charlotte was born. Said I needed to think about my failures, about how I disappointed him, again. Her voice stayed level, flat. The way you talked about weather or crops or anything that didn't matter. After Beth came the third daughter, he stopped pretending, stopped making excuses, just hurt me whenever the mood struck, and the girls he never hit them, never had to. They learned to be perfect, to be invisible, to never need anything. Grace, don't. She looked up, eyes dry but haunted. Don't pity me. Don't tell me I'm brave or strong or survived something hard. I'm not brave. I'm a coward who stayed because leaving meant dying, and at least staying meant my girls had a mother. That's not cowardice. That's love. Love, she laughed, hollow. Love is what got me into this. I loved Victor once, believed him when he said he'd build us a life. Believed marriage meant partnership. Believed... She stopped. Doesn't matter what I believed. Only matters what's true. And truth is, he'll come for us. He'll take us back. And this time, I think he'll kill me. Not quickly, not mercifully, but eventually. Flint moved to the window, stared out at the prairie, at the fence he'd been mending, at the barn where 3 little girls were learning to gather eggs, at the life he'd stopped building 5 years ago. I had a choice once, he said. Doctor told me I had to choose, save Catherine or save the baby. I froze. Couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Doctor chose for me. Chose wrong. They both died anyway. He turned. I've lived with that freeze for 5 years. That moment when I could have acted and didn't. Could have been brave and wasn't. Could have fought and surrendered instead. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not. But it's mine to carry. He moved closer, still keeping distance. Yesterday morning I heard you scream. Had another choice. Walk past. Mind my business. Let the world be cruel without me watching. Or step in. Risk everything. Probably die for nothing. He met her eyes. I stepped in. Not because I'm brave. Because I'm tired of freezing. Tired of letting fear make my choices. Tired of not being the man Catherine thought she married. Grace stared at him. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably. And us with you. I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. No, Flint admitted. But I can promise I'll die trying. That's all I've got. That and stubbornness. Outside, the girls laughed. Charlotte had found a chicken. Was chasing it around the yard while Beth clapped and Abigail shouted instructions. Grace listened to her daughter's laugh. Sound she probably hadn't heard in months, maybe years. All right, she said quietly. All right. We stay. We fight. Her voice caught. We hope it's enough. It wouldn't be enough. They both knew it. 15 men against 1. Law on Victor's side. Town on Victor's side. God himself probably on Victor's side if Pastor Reynolds's sermons meant anything. But sometimes you fought anyway. Not because you'd win. Because surrender meant death of a different kind. The slow death. The kind where your heart kept beating, but everything that mattered had already died. Flint had been dying that death for 5 years. Yesterday, he'd started living again. Might not last. Probably wouldn't. But for now, for this moment, 3 little girls were laughing in his yard, and a woman was hoping, instead of surrendering, and he was making choices instead of freezing. That was something. That was enough. The afternoon passed in preparation. Flint moved weapons to the cabin. His Winchester, his Colt, Catherine's small Derringer she'd kept hidden in her sewing box. Ammunition. Not much. Maybe enough. Grace watched him work. You really think we can hold them off? No. But I think we can make them reconsider the cost. Make coming for you more trouble than it's worth. Victor doesn't think like that. He thinks in terms of ownership, property. What's his? Then I'll teach him different. She almost smiled. You can't teach a mad dog new tricks. No, but you can put down a mad dog. The words hung between them. Heavy, final. Grace touched his arm, just briefly. If it comes to that, if you have to, don't hesitate. Don't freeze. He won't give you a second chance. I know, eh? She withdrew her hand. I never thanked you. For yesterday. For seeing me. Everyone else looked away. You didn't. Didn't deserve thanks. Should have been done years ago. By someone. Anyone. But it wasn't. It was you. Yesterday. That matters. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Either way, night was coming. And with it likely violence. Flint sent the girls inside as the sun touched the horizon. Made them practice hiding in the root cellar. Made them promise to stay quiet, no matter what they heard. Even if Mama screams? Beth asked. Even then? Even if you scream? I won't scream. Everyone screams, Beth said seriously. Papa makes everyone scream. Charlotte hugged her sister. Papa's not here. Mr. Morrison won't let him be. Such faith. Such impossible, heartbreaking faith. From children who'd learned the opposite. Who'd learned that men broke promises and violence won and hope was a luxury. Flint knelt, looked at all three girls. I'm going to tell you something true, and I need you to believe it. Can you do that? They nodded. Your papa hurt you. Hurt your mama. That was wrong. That was his choice. His evil. Not yours. Not hers. His. He paused. Chose his words carefully. Not all men are like him. Some men keep promises. Some men protect instead of harm. Some men think little girls are blessings, not disappointments. Are you that kind of man? Abigail asked. I'm trying to be. What if you fail? Honest question. Deserved honesty. Then I fail knowing I tried. That's all anyone can do. Abigail considered this. Then she wrapped her arms around his neck, hugged him. First time anyone had touched him with affection in 5 years. Flint's eyes burned. He blinked hard, held her carefully, like she might break. Thank you, she whispered, for being the kind of man who tries. Charlotte and Beth joined in. 3 little girls clinging to a broken man who'd finally found something worth fixing. Grace watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her battered face. She didn't wipe them away, just let them fall. When the girls finally released him, Flint stood, cleared his throat. All right, into the cellar. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Don't come out until your mama or I tell you it's safe. They obeyed. Climbed down into darkness. Abigail pulled the cellar door closed behind them. Flint and Grace stood alone in the cabin. Night falling fast. Wolves howling in the distance. Or maybe men. Hard to tell the difference. What now? Grace asked. Now we wait. I hate waiting. Me too. They waited. Flint by the window, rifle across his lap. Grace at the table, derringer in her hand. Learning its weight. Its promise of violence if violence came. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. No riders, no torches, no Victor. Maybe Clara had bought them more time. Maybe Victor was planning something worse. Maybe the first bullet shattered the window. Glass exploded inward. Grace hit the floor. Flint was already moving, rifle up, scanning the darkness beyond the shattered window. Muzzle flash from the tree line. 200 yards. Maybe 3 shooters. Stay down, he said. Another shot. This one hit the doorframe. Splinters flew. They weren't trying to kill. Not yet. This was intimidation. Terror. Making them understand how trapped they were. Grace, can you shoot? I don't know. I never... Point and pull. That's all. Don't aim for killing. Aim for noise. Make them think twice about coming closer. She crawled to the opposite window. Hands shaking so hard the derringer rattled against the sill. I can't see anything. You will. Wait for muzzle flash. Then fire at the light. Victor's voice carried across the darkness, amplified by whiskey and righteousness and the kind of rage that made men do evil things. Morrison, send out my wife and children. Do it now, and maybe you live. Maybe I let you walk away from this. Flint didn't answer. Answering gave away position, gave them something to shoot at besides wood and glass. I know you can hear me. I know she's in there. Grace. Victor's voice cracked. Grace, baby, I'm sorry, I was drunk, didn't mean it. Come on home now. Bring the girls. We'll forget this happened. Grace made a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. He always says that, always sorry, always didn't mean it, until next time. Don't answer him, Flint said. Let him talk. Let him waste his breath. More shots. One hit the chimney. Stone chips flew. Another punched through the door. The heavy wood held but barely. From the root cellar, a child's cry. Quickly muffled. Beth probably. Scared by the gunfire. Abigail would be holding her, keeping her quiet, teaching her to be invisible again. Grace's face twisted. My babies are safe. Underground. Stone walls between them and bullets. They're safer than we are. Grace. Victor again. Closer now. Maybe 100 yards. Don't make me come in there. Don't make me hurt him. Just walk out right now. We go home. Everyone lives. He's lying, Grace whispered. I know. If I go out there, he'll kill you. Then he'll kill me. Then... Her voice broke. Then my girls have no one. You're not going out there. What if it's the only way to save them? What if... Grace. Flint met her eyes across the dark cabin. I didn't bring you here to sacrifice you. I brought you here to keep you alive. That's what's happening. You understand. She nodded. Didn't believe him, but nodded anyway. Sheriff Morgan's voice joined Victor's. Official. Legal. The kind of voice that made wrong sound righteous. James Morrison. You're harboring another man's wife. That's kidnapping under territorial law. Come out peacefully. Face trial. Judge might show mercy. Flint almost laughed. Judge Harlan was 2 counties away. Only judge within riding distance was Potter, and Potter owed Victor money. Potter would show mercy the way Winter showed mercy to Wheat. Last chance, Morrison. The sheriff's voice hardened. Send her out or we're coming in. Still, Flint didn't answer. Let them wonder. Let them imagine him in every shadow, every window, every corner. A new voice. Pastor Reynolds. Sanctimonious. Certain. James, my son, you're committing grave sin. Breaking holy covenant of marriage. Condemning your soul. Send Mrs. Harper home to her rightful husband. Repent. Save yourself. Holy covenant, Grace spat. Where was holy covenant when Victor broke my arm, when he locked me in darkness for bearing daughters instead of sons? Where was God then? God tests us, the pastor called back like he'd heard her. Tests wives to be patient, husbands to be firm. You failed your test, Sister Grace, failed to provide sons, failed to honor and obey. This suffering is consequence. Grace's hand tightened on the derringer. For a moment, Flint thought she might shoot the pastor instead of Victor, might choose righteousness over survival. Don't, he said quietly. He's not worth the bullet. He blamed me, for Victor's violence, for my own beating, for... She choked on rage. For bearing daughters like I had any choice in the matter. He's a fool. He's the voice of this town, voice of God, they say. If God thinks I deserved this, then God's wrong. The words hung in darkness, blasphemy, heresy, the kind of statement that got you shunned or worse. Grace stared at him. You believe that? I believe any God worth worshiping wouldn't punish a woman for bearing daughters, wouldn't call violence covenant, wouldn't... Flint stopped, breathed. Catherine prayed every day, believed in heaven and mercy and divine plan. Then she died screaming. Fever took her and God did nothing. Nothing. So yeah, if that's God's plan, then God's wrong. Silence. Then Grace's hand found his in the darkness. Squeezed. Thank you. For what? For being angry at God with me. for making me feel less alone in it." Before Flint could answer, fire blossomed in the night. Not muzzle flash, actual fire. Torches, 6 of them, moving closer, surrounding the cabin. "They're going to burn us out," Grace whispered. "No, they want you alive, want to parade you back, make an example, fire's just for show." But his gut told him different. Told him Victor was past caring about alive or dead, past caring about anything except ownership, taking back what was his or destroying it so no one else could have it. The torches stopped 50 yards out. Circle of flame in darkness. Inside that circle, Flint counted shadows. 15 men, like Clara said. Maybe more. Victor stepped into the light, torch in one hand, pistol in the other, face twisted with rage and righteousness and whiskey courage. "I'm coming to the door, Morrison. Gonna count to 10. You don't send her out. I'm throwing this torch through that window. Cabin burns. You burn. Grace burns. And those 3 little disappointments in the cellar, they burn too." Grace's breath hitched. He knows. He knows where they are. He's guessing. What if he's not? Flint's mind raced. The cabin would burn fast. Dry wood. Dry thatch. Maybe 5 minutes to engulf. Root cellar might protect the girls. Might not. Stone and earth, but smoke would seep through. They'd suffocate before they burned. 1. Victor's voice cut through night. "I'm going out," Grace said. "No." 2. "My girls are down there. I won't let them burn because of me." 3. "Grace, listen." 4. "If you go out there, he kills you. Then he kills me. Then he takes those girls and raises them to think mothers are disposable, and fathers are gods, and women deserve whatever violence comes. That what you want?" 5. Grace's face crumpled. "I want my babies to live. That's all. Just live." 6. "They will, but not by surrender. Not by teaching them that monsters win if they shout loud enough." 7. Flint made a choice. Risky, probably fatal, but better than burning. He stood, moved to the door, Winchester ready. 8. "What are you doing?" Grace hissed, calling his bluff. 9. Flint threw open the door, stepped into firelight, rifle aimed at Victor's chest. "Throw that torch, and I put a bullet through your heart before it lands. We both know I don't miss at this range. We both know I'm faster than you. So here's what happens, Victor. You back off. Take your men. Leave. Come back at dawn with legal papers and a real judge and we'll talk terms. But right now tonight, you get nothing." Victor's face went purple. "You're on my land. This is federal land, open range. I've got as much right to be here as you. That's my wife. That's a woman who asked for protection. I'm providing it. Legal, proper. Nothing you can do about it except murder me in front of 15 witnesses. That what you want? Want all these men to watch you commit murder? Want them to hang alongside you when the federal marshal comes asking questions?" The men shifted, uncertain now. Murder was one thing when it was private, when you could claim self-defense or accident or righteous fury. Public execution in front of witnesses, that was different. That was risk. Deputy Cole stepped forward. Young, nervous, gun drawn but not aimed. "Flint, be reasonable. Just send her out. We'll sort this legally." "There's nothing legal about beating a woman half to death, Cole. Nothing legal about terrorizing children. Nothing legal about burning down a cabin with kids inside." Flint's voice carried across the circle, addressing all of them now. "Every man here knows what Victor did. You saw it. Some of you looked away. Some of you pretended you didn't see. But you all know. So here's your choice. Back him. Become part of his crime. Or walk away. Walk away and no one has to die tonight." Silence. Men looking at each other. Looking at Victor. Calculating. Mrs. Weatherby's husband stepped back, out of the circle. I didn't sign up for killing. Came to return a wife to her husband, not to murder. Another man followed. Then another. The circle was breaking. Cowards! Victor screamed. All of you! She's my property. The law says so. The Bible says so. God himself says so. God says love your wife, someone called from the darkness. Says cherish her. Don't see much cherishing in what you did yesterday morning. Victor spun, trying to identify the voice, failing. Who said that? Show yourself. No one moved. Pastor Reynolds stepped forward. Victor's right. Scripture is clear. Wives submit to husbands. This woman's sin. I left my wife, a voice called. Same voice, still hidden. Left because I loved her enough to let her go when I couldn't stop drinking, couldn't stop hitting. You know what that makes me, Pastor? Makes me better than Victor, and I'm a drunk who sleeps in the livery stable. Laughter. Harsh. Male. The kind of laughter that said truth had been spoken. The pastor's face went red. This is blasphemy. This is truth, the voice continued. We all know what Victor is, what he does. We looked away because it was easier. Because she was just some woman, and they were just some kids, and it wasn't our business. But Morrison made it our business. Made us see it. Made us choose. So I'm choosing. I'm choosing to walk away. Let Victor fight his own battles. More men backed off. 5. Then 7. Then 10. Victor stood alone. Him and the sheriff and the pastor and maybe 3 others, too scared or too loyal or too stupid to leave. Grace. Victor's voice cracked, raw with desperation. Grace, please, I'm sorry. I'll change, I swear. Just come home, bring the girls. I'll be better, I promise. From inside the cabin, Grace's voice rang clear. First time she'd spoken loud in years, probably. First time she'd claimed her own voice. I've heard your promises, Victor Harper. Heard them 100 times. 1,000. Every promise broken the moment the whiskey touched your lips. The moment your temper rose. The moment I failed to be the perfect, silent wife who bore perfect, silent sons. Her voice grew stronger. I'm done with your promises. Done with your fists. Done with teaching my daughters that this is what love looks like. You're my wife. I was your wife. Was the girl who believed you when you said you'd build us a life. Was the woman who stayed because I thought love meant sacrifice. But I'm not that woman anymore. You beat her to death. Yesterday morning in the street, you finally killed her. What's standing here now? She's someone new. Someone who chooses herself. Chooses her daughters. Chooses life without you. Victor raised his pistol. Aimed at the cabin. At Grace's voice. Flint's rifle barked once. The pistol flew from Victor's hand. Blood sprayed. Victor screamed. Clutched his shattered hand. Next one goes through your chest, Flint said calmly. Your choice. Sheriff Morgan drew his gun. Aimed at Flint. You just assaulted. I defended a woman from a man trying to shoot her. You saw it. Everyone saw it. Victor aimed his weapon at an unarmed woman. I stopped him. That's not assault. That's justice. The sheriff wavered. Gun still raised, but finger off the trigger. He knew Flint was right. Knew every witness would testify that Victor shot first, or tried to. Walk away, Morgan, Flint said quietly. You're a good man under that badge. Don't die defending a bad one. The sheriff's gun lowered, inch by inch. Finally, he holstered it. This isn't over, Morrison. Yes, it is. Tell Victor when he sobers up, he comes near Grace or those girls again, I won't shoot to wound. I'll shoot to kill. And I'll smile doing it. The sheriff dragged Victor away. The other men followed. Torches retreating into darkness, leaving Flint alone in the yard, still holding his rifle, still ready for violence. But the violence was done. For tonight, anyway. Grace stumbled out of the cabin, fell to her knees in the dirt, sobbing. Not sad sobs. Relief. Release. The kind of crying that came from holding back for years. Flint lowered his rifle, crossed to her slowly. "Grace?" She looked up, face wet with tears and moonlight. "You shot him." "Just his hand. He'll live." "You should have killed him." "Maybe. But that makes me a murderer. Makes you a widow married to a murderer. Makes those girls orphans. Wounding sends a message. Killing starts a war." Grace grabbed his hand, the one that held the rifle. That had just shot her husband. She pressed it to her face, kissed his knuckles. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." Flint stood frozen. Hadn't been touched like that in 5 years. Hadn't felt gratitude directed at him instead of resentment or pity or awkward silence. "You're welcome," he managed. The root cellar door creaked open. 3 small faces peered out. Dirty, terrified, alive. "Mama," Abigail called. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. It's safe now." The girls climbed out, ran to their mother. All 4 of them collapsed into each other, crying, laughing, clinging. Flint stepped back, gave them space, gave them this moment of survival and relief and family. He walked to the fence, stared out at darkness where Victor had stood, where torches had burned, where 15 men had come to take back property and left empty-handed. Victory, temporary, fragile, but real. Behind him, Grace's voice. "Girls, go inside. Get cleaned up. I'll be there in a minute." The girls obeyed, still too well trained, still too accustomed to following orders without question. Grace joined him at the fence, stood close but not touching, both of them staring at nothing, at everything. "What happens now?" she asked. Now Victor licks his wounds, nurses his rage, plans something worse. Will he come back? Yes. When? Don't know. Days, weeks. He'll come with more men, more guns, more legal paperwork, more authority. Flint turned to face her. Or he'll come alone at night with a knife and revenge in his heart. Men like Victor losing makes them dangerous. Losing publicly makes them fatal. Grace wrapped her arms around herself. "Then we can't stay. Have to run, tonight, before Mo." "No." "Why not? We've got maybe a day's head start. We take the girls' ride west." "And live how with what money? What supplies you think 3 little girls can survive hard riding, sleep on frozen ground, eat whatever we hunt, or go hungry? Better than waiting here to die." "Maybe. Or maybe we stand our ground, build something, make this mean something." Grace laughed. Bitter. Mean what that one good man stood against the world and lost. That's not meaning. That's tragedy. Catherine used to say the same thing. The words came before Flint could stop them. "Said my pride would get us killed. Said I should bend more, compromise, make peace with how things were instead of fighting for how they should be." He paused. "She was probably right. Probably would have lived longer if I'd listened. But I couldn't. Can't. Some things you stand for even when standing kills you." "That's not bravery. That's suicide." "Maybe there's no difference." They stood in silence, night air cold, spring promising warmth but delivering frost. Grace finally spoke. "What was she like, Catherine?" Flint wasn't ready for the question, wasn't ready to remember. But Grace had shared her truth, deserved his in return. "Strong, stronger than me. She worked this land like it owed her something, planted gardens that shouldn't have survived Montana winter, made this cabin feel like home when it was just 4 walls and hope." He stopped, breathed. She laughed loud, sang off key, told terrible jokes, made terrible coffee, loved me anyway even when I was difficult, especially when I was difficult. "She sounds wonderful." She was. Then she was pregnant. Then she was dying. Then she was dead. All in the space of a week. like the world decided wonderful things don't last, shouldn't last. Grace touched his arm. I'm sorry. Me too. Do you think she'd approve of this, of me and the girls? Flint considered, really considered. Catherine had believed in justice, in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, in standing against wrong even when standing cost everything. She'd have helped you before I did, he finally said. Would have marched into that street and grabbed you herself. Would have shot Victor without hesitation. Would have... His voice caught. Would have been the brave one while I stood frozen. You didn't freeze yesterday. No, but I froze once when it mattered. When she was dying and I couldn't choose. Couldn't act. Couldn't... He stopped. Shook his head. Doesn't matter now. Past is past. Past is never past, Grace said softly. It's always right here. Always shaping what we do next. She was right. The past lived in every choice, every hesitation, every moment of courage or cowardice. From inside the cabin, Beth's voice called, Mama, Charlotte's bleeding. Grace ran. Flint followed. Charlotte sat at the table, blood streaming from her nose, not hurt, not hit, just stress, fear, body breaking under the weight of terror. Grace grabbed a cloth, pressed it to her daughter's face. It's all right, baby. Just your nose. Happens sometimes when you're scared. You're safe now. You're safe. But Charlotte's eyes wide and dark, and knowing they said she understood safety was temporary. That men came with torches and guns. That mothers bled and fathers raged, and the world was cruel more often than kind. Flint knelt beside her. Hey there, Miss Charlotte. You're tougher than you think. Survived tonight. Stayed quiet in that cellar. Protected your sisters. That's bravery. Charlotte looked at him. I don't want to be brave. I want to be normal. Want to live somewhere where men don't shoot and mama don't cry and... Her voice broke. Want to not be scared all the time. The words hit harder than bullets. Harder than Victor's fists. Harder than anything. Flint had no answer. No promise he could make. No future he could guarantee. So he did the only thing he could. He told the truth. I know, sweetheart. I know. And maybe someday you will be. Maybe someday this will just be a bad story you tell your own daughters. Story about the time you were brave, even though you didn't want to be. Even though it hurt. Even though it was hard. He paused. Until then, I'm here. Your mama's here. We're all here together. That's something. Not everything. But something. Charlotte nodded. Wiped her eyes. The bleeding stopped. Abigail spoke from the doorway. Are they coming back? Probably. Will you shoot them again? If I have to. Good. Abigail's voice carried steel. They deserve shooting. All of them. For watching. For helping Papa. For... She stopped. Looked at her mother. I hate him, Mama. I know I'm not supposed to. Know the pastor says hate's a sin. But I hate him anyway. Grace pulled her daughter close. Oh, baby. That's not sin. That's survival. That's your heart protecting itself. Don't apologize for it. Don't feel guilty. Just feel it and let it pass through and come out the other side stronger. Does it pass the hate? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. They held each other. 4 females in a cabin. 1 male keeping watch. Temporary safety. Fragile peace. The kind that breaks at sunrise. But it was night now. And they were alive. And that was enough. Flint moved to the broken window. Began boarding it up. Hammer and nails and wood. Building barriers between inside and outside. Between safety and threat. Grace joined him. Held boards while he nailed. Working together. Neither speaking. Just existing in shared space. Shared purpose. When the last board went up, she said, Thank you. For tonight. For not letting him take us. You don't have to keep thanking me. I know, but I want to. Want you to know it matters. You matter. This... She gestured at the cabin. The girls. The boarded windows. This matters. Flint nodded. Couldn't speak. Didn't trust his voice. They stood in darkness, listening to wind, listening to silence, listening to the sound of not dying. Outside, wolves howled. Or maybe just the memory of wolves. Hard to tell anymore. Dawn came too bright, too honest. The kind of light that made last night's victory feel smaller, more fragile. Flint stood in the yard, watching the sun climb over prairie that stretched forever in every direction. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. Just open land and open sky, and the weight of choices he couldn't take back. Grace emerged from the cabin, hair loose, face still swollen from Victor's fists 2 days ago. 2 days. Felt like years. Felt like minutes. Time had lost meaning somewhere between the shooting and the boarding up of windows, and the sound of children crying themselves to sleep. "Girls are still sleeping," she said. "First peaceful sleep they've had in, I don't know, months, maybe longer. Let them rest." "What about you? Did you sleep at all?" "Someone had to keep watch. You can't keep watch forever. Eventually you'll collapse. Then, what good are you to any of us?" She was right. Flint's eyes burned. His hands shook from exhaustion and adrenaline crash, and the particular weariness that came from holding yourself ready for violence that might come any moment or never come at all. "I'll rest when it's safe." "When will that be?" He had no answer. Safety was a lie people told themselves. A comfort for those who hadn't learned better. Grace knew that now. Her daughters knew it. Hell, everyone in Redemption Creek knew it. They just pretended otherwise. Grace moved beside him, close enough he could smell soap and smoke and something underneath fear that had soaked into skin and wouldn't wash out. "Victor won't let this go. You know that." "I know. He'll come back, with more men, more legal authority, more—" She stopped, started again. "Or he'll come alone, at night, with a knife. He's done it before." Flint's jaw tightened. "Done what before?" "There was a man, years ago, before we married, courted me. Sweet boy, made me laugh. Victor found out, challenged him to a fight, said it was about honor, about settling things like men." Her voice went flat. "They found the boy 3 days later, throat cut. Victor said it was bandits. Everyone believed him, or pretended to." "Grace, I'm telling you so you understand. Victor doesn't fight fair, doesn't fight honorable. He waits, he plans. He strikes when you're not looking, when you've let your guard down." She turned to face him. "You saved us yesterday. I'm grateful, more than I can say. But gratitude won't stop a knife in the dark. Neither will running. No, but maybe it buys time, buys distance, buys a chance." Before Flint could answer, hoofbeats. Single rider, coming fast from town. His hand found his Colt. Grace moved behind him. Instinct, trust, the kind that came from standing together through gunfire. The rider crested the hill. Clara, again, face grim. Horse lathered from hard riding. She reined in, dismounted. "We've got problems. More than yesterday. Victor's hand is infected. Doctor says he might lose it, maybe the whole arm if it spreads." Clara's eyes were hard. "He's blaming you, says you deliberately shot to maim, shot to cripple, says it's attempted murder. It was self-defense. I know that, you know that, 15 witnesses know that, but Victor's spinning it different, saying you ambushed him, saying he came peacefully to talk to his wife, and you opened fire without warning." Grace laughed, sharp, bitter. "Peacefully, with 15 armed men and torches. I said he was spinning it, didn't say it was true." Clara looked at Flint. "Sheriff's coming back, this time with papers, real papers. Federal marshal signed off. Says Grace has to return to her husband or face charges of abandonment. Says you have to surrender for assault with intent to kill." The words hung in morning air, heavy, Final. Flint's mind raced. Federal marshal meant this wasn't just town politics anymore. Wasn't just Victor's pride. This was law. Official. Backed by authority that stretched beyond Redemption Creek. When? He asked. Tomorrow. Maybe today. Marshal's making the ride from Helena. Should arrive by sunset. And if we're not here when he arrives? Clara's expression softened. Then you're fugitives. Wanted. Hunted. No town will shelter you. No supplies. No safety. You'll be running until they catch you or you die trying. Grace's hand found Flint's arm. Then we run. Right now. Before... No, Flint said. You keep saying that. Keep refusing to run. But why? What's here worth dying for? Principle. Justice. The idea that a man can't beat his wife half to death and then use law to drag her back for more. Flint turned to Clara. The marshal, he's coming here himself. Yes. Marshal Kane. Heard of him? Flint had. Everyone had. Marcus Kane. Federal marshal who'd cleaned up 3 territories. Fair. Honest. Incorruptible. Also ruthless. Also uncompromising. The kind of man who enforced law whether law was right or wrong. He's a good man, Flint said slowly. Good men follow bad laws same as bad men, Clara replied. Maybe better, because they believe in it. She was right. Kane would come, would see the papers, would enforce them. Wouldn't matter that Grace had bruises, that her daughters were terrified, that Victor was violent and dangerous and everything wrong with how the world worked. Law said wife returned to husband. Law said children returned to father. Law said Flint was the criminal. There's something else, Clara said quietly. Victor's offering reward. $500 to anyone who brings Grace back, dead or alive. The sum sucked air from Flint's lungs. $500 was a fortune, years' wages for most men, enough to buy land, livestock, future, enough to make good men consider doing bad things. Grace swayed. Flint caught her elbow. 500. He's willing to spend 500 to... She couldn't finish. To own you. Flint finished. To prove he can. To prove no one takes what's his and lives. Clara's face was grave. There's men in town already asking questions. Asking where this ranch is. How many people here? How well defended? They're not asking out of curiosity. Bounty hunters. And worse. Drifters who'd kill for $50. 500. They'll come in force. Flint's jaw set. Let them come. James. Clara used his given name. First time in years. You're one man. You can't hold off an army. Can't protect them forever. Can't... She stopped. Softened. Can't save everyone. Sometimes surviving means running. Means living to fight another day. I ran once, when Catherine was dying. Ran from making the choice, from being there, from watching. His voice went hollow. Came back to a wife and daughter already cold. Already gone. Already buried in my cowardice. He met Clara's eyes. I'm not running again. Clara studied him, looking for sanity, finding only stubborn determination that looked a lot like death wish. Then you're going to die. You know that. Probably. And Grace. The girls. What happens to them when you're dead? I won't let. You won't be able to stop it. You'll be in the ground, and they'll be dragged back, and Victor will do worse than before, because now he's got permission. Got legal authority? Got 500 reasons to make it hurt. The truth hit like Victor's fists. Clara was right. Fighting meant dying. Dying meant losing. Losing meant Grace and her daughters returned to hell with no hope of escape. Grace's voice cut through his spiral. Then I go back. Now. This morning. Before more people die. Before... No. Flint's voice was steel. It's my choice. It's suicide. It's survival. For my girls. For you. For... Grace's eyes filled. I won't let you die for me. Won't let strangers hunt us for money. Won't let my daughters watch men kill each other over who owns their mother. Grace. I'm going back, James. You can't stop me. The use of his name felt like intimacy, like trust, like something breaking that couldn't be fixed. I can, he said quietly. I can lock you in the root cellar, can tie you up, can force you to stay. Then you're no better than Victor. The word struck true, drew blood. Flint stepped back, looked at this woman who'd survived years of violence, who stood here bruised and terrified and willing to walk back into hell to save him, to save her children, to save everyone except herself. You're right, he admitted. I can't force you, won't force you. Your choice, your life, your risk. He paused. But before you make it know this, you walk back into that house, you're not saving anyone. You're teaching your daughters that surrender is survival, that violence wins, that mothers are disposable and fathers are gods and women exist to be owned. Grace's face crumpled. I don't know what else to do. Don't know how to fight this. Don't know. You fight by standing, by refusing, by making them drag you kicking and screaming instead of walking peacefully into your own destruction. That's easy to say when you're not the one being dragged. I know. I know it's easy for me. I'm not the one with everything to lose. I'm not... He stopped. Breathed. Started again. Catherine used to say I had more courage than sense. Used to say I'd get us both killed with my principles and pride. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'm asking you to die for principles that don't matter to anyone but me. They matter, Grace whispered. They matter more than anything. But mattering doesn't stop bullets, doesn't stop bounty hunters, doesn't stop. From the cabin, a child's scream. Beth. They ran. Clara followed. Flint hit the door first. Gun drawn, ready for Victor, ready for bounty hunters, ready for violence. Beth sat on the floor, holding her arm. Not bleeding, not shot, just spider, Abigail said calmly. She's scared of spiders. The tension drained. Flint holstered his gun. Grace collapsed against the doorframe, laughing, or crying, hard to tell. Spider, she repeated. I thought. I know, Flint said. Me too. Clara picked up Beth, examined the arm. No bite, just fear. You're all right, sweetheart. Just a little spider. Probably more scared of you than you are of it. Beth hiccuped. I don't think so. Charlotte appeared from the bedroom. Is Mama leaving? I heard you talking. Heard you say she was going back to Papa. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Grace knelt, pulled both her younger daughters close. No, baby. I'm not. She looked up at Flint. At Clara. At the boarded windows and the broken door and the evidence of last night's violence. I'm not going anywhere. We're staying, all of us, together. But the men who are coming, let them come. We'll face them together, all of us, as a family. The word hung in air. Family. This collection of broken people in a half-finished cabin, not connected by blood or law or anything official. Connected by choice. By standing together when everyone else looked away. Abigail spoke from the doorway. We're not a family. Families are supposed to be safe. We're just people hiding. Maybe that's what family is, Flint said. Not the safe kind. The kind that hides together, fights together, chooses each other when everyone else says you're wrong. Clara set Beth down. That's a nice thought. Poetic even. But poetry doesn't stop marshals. Doesn't stop bounty hunters. Doesn't stop... She stopped. Looked at each of them. I came to warn you. To give you a chance to run. But I see you've made your choice. Stupid choice. Probably fatal. But yours. You could help us. Grace said suddenly. You know the town, know the people, know who might. I'm a saloon woman, honey. I've got no standing, no authority, no. You've got information, got connections, got access to men who drink and talk and say things they shouldn't. Grace's voice strengthened. You've got power, different kind than marshals and guns, but power all the same. Clara stared at her. You want me to spy? I want you to survive, same as us. You think Victor stops with me? You think he stops with women who defy him? You're next, Clara. Or someone like you. Someone who helped us. Someone who knew and didn't report. He'll come for all of us eventually. The truth settled. Clara's face went pale. She'd helped them, brought medicine, brought warnings, made herself complicit. I didn't think. I know, but now you have to. Have to choose. Help us or run or... Grace stopped. Or go back and pretend you never knew us. Pretend you never helped. Save yourself. Clara was quiet for a long time. Outside, birds sang, oblivious to human drama, oblivious to violence and choice, and the weight of deciding between right and safe. Catherine was my friend, Clara finally said. Best friend I ever had. Only person in this town who treated me like human instead of sin. When she died, I promised myself I'd look after James, make sure he didn't do something stupid and noble and fatal. She looked at Flint. I'm failing that promise spectacularly. You can't save me from myself. I know, but I can maybe buy you time, maybe delay the marshal, maybe spread word to the decent folks that what's happening here is wrong. She turned to Grace. I'll help, but understand I'm one woman with limited influence. I can slow them down, can't stop them. Slow is enough. Slow gives us time to plan, to prepare, to... Grace looked at Flint. What do we do? How do we fight federal law? Flint's mind worked. Marshal coming, bounty hunters coming, town divided, some sympathetic, most just wanting this over, peace over justice, safety over right. We tell the truth, he said, loud, public, make it impossible to ignore, make Marshal Kane see what Victor really is, make him choose between law and justice. And if he chooses law, then we've lost, but at least we fought. Clara snorted. That's your plan. Tell the truth and hope that's all we've got, unless you've got better. She didn't. None of them did. The rest of the day passed in preparation. Flint reinforced the cabin. More boards on windows. Bar for the door. Firing positions marked. Ammunition counted. Not enough. Never enough. Grace worked with the girls. Practiced hiding. Practiced silence. Practiced the root cellar drill until they could disappear in seconds without sound. Charlotte drew pictures. Violent pictures. Men with guns. Houses burning. Mothers bleeding. Art as trauma. As processing. As the only way a 6-year-old could make sense of a world gone mad. Abigail watched everything. Learning. Memorizing. Becoming hard in ways children shouldn't have to be. Beth clung to Grace's skirt. Silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that came from fear too big for words. Evening came. Clara rode back to town. Promised to return with news. With warnings. With whatever help she could gather. Flint stood watch as stars emerged. One by one. Pinpricks in darkness. Beautiful and distant and utterly indifferent to human suffering. Grace joined him. Didn't speak. Just stood. Existing in shared space. Do you think we'll win? She finally asked. No. Then why fight? Because losing on your feet beats winning on your knees. Because your daughters are watching. Because... He stopped. Started again. Because 5 years ago I had a choice. Fight for Catherine or accept her death. I accepted. Told myself it was mercy. That fighting would only prolong suffering. That surrender was kindness. His voice broke. I've regretted it every day since. Regretted not fighting, not raging, not refusing to accept the unacceptable. She was dying. You couldn't have saved her. Maybe not, but I could have fought. Could have made death work for her. Could have... He breathed. Could have been there, really there, instead of already mourning, already gone, already half dead myself. Grace took his hand. First time she'd initiated touch. Her palm was rough, calloused, real. You're here now. That's what matters. Is it enough? I don't know. Ask me when this is over. They stood in darkness, holding hands. Two broken people pretending they could protect three small lives from a world designed to crush them. Inside the cabin, Beth started crying. Nightmare, probably. Grace went to her, left Flint alone with stars and silence and the growing certainty that tomorrow would bring reckoning. He checked his guns, checked his ammunition, checked his resolve, found it solid, unshakable, the kind of certainty that came from having nothing left to lose. Dawn would come, Marshall would come, choice would come, and Flint would stand, would fight, would die if necessary. But he wouldn't freeze, wouldn't surrender, wouldn't run. Not this time. Never again. Inside, Grace sang to her daughters. Lullaby. Soft and sad and full of impossible hope. Flint listened, memorized, held the sound close. If this was his last night alive, at least he'd spend it protecting something worth protecting. At least he'd die mattering to someone. At least he'd die trying. The stars wheeled overhead. Indifferent. Beautiful. Eternal. And below them, one man stood guard over one woman and three children who'd become his reason for everything. His redemption. His purpose. His last stand. Morning broke with the sound of many horses. Not 2. Not 5. 20. Maybe more. The thunder of hooves carried across prairie like judgment itself riding in. Flint was already awake. Had been all night. He stood in the yard watching dust rise on the horizon. Army of men coming. Law coming. Reckoning coming. Grace emerged from the cabin, face pale but steady. How many? Too many. Should I wake the girls? Let them sleep. Few more minutes of peace before... He stopped. No need to finish. They both knew. The riders crested the hill. Marshal Kane led them. Tall man, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much and believed in law anyway. Behind him rode Sheriff Morgan, Deputy Cole, Pastor Reynolds, and men Flint didn't recognize. Professional men, federal deputies, the kind who enforced warrants and didn't ask questions. Victor wasn't with them. Smart. Let the law do his work. Keep his hands clean this time. The marshal reined in 50 feet from the cabin. Respectful distance. Gun range, but not threatening range. A man who understood violence but preferred talking first. James Morrison. His voice carried authority without shouting. That's me. I'm Federal Marshal Marcus Kane. Got papers here requiring Grace Harper's return to her legal husband. Also got a warrant for your arrest on charges of assault and kidnapping. You going to make this easy or hard? Depends on your definition of easy. The marshal almost smiled. Fair enough. How about we start with talking just you and me? No guns, no threats. Just two men trying to sort this without bloodshed. Flint glanced at Grace. She nodded, trusting his judgment, trusting him. He walked forward, slowly, hands visible, no weapons drawn. The marshal dismounted, did the same. They met in the middle of the yard. Up close, Kane looked tired. The kind of tired that came from enforcing laws you didn't always agree with. From doing duty even when duty felt wrong. Son, he said quietly, I heard what happened. Heard Victor Harper's a violent man. Heard he beats his wife. Heard a lot of things that make me sick to enforce this warrant. Then don't. Can't do that. Law's law. I enforce it, or I'm no better than the men who break it. even when law's wrong. Especially then, because if I pick and choose which laws matter, then law means nothing. Becomes whoever's got the biggest gun making the rules. Kane's eyes were sad but certain. I don't like this, but I'm doing it anyway, because that's what separates civilization from chaos. Flint understood. Hated it, but understood. What if I told you she'd die if she went back, that he'd kill her? I'd say that's speculation, that's fear. But it's not evidence, not proof. Court needs proof. Her face is proof. Her broken ribs are proof. Her daughter's nightmares are proof. That's proof of past violence, not future intent. Harper's got a lawyer now, got papers saying he's reformed, got Pastor Reynolds willing to testify he's been counseled, found God, repented. Kane's voice carried disgust under the professional tone. It's all horse shit, but it's legal horse shit, and legal is what I enforce. Grace's voice cut across the yard. Marshal? Both men turned. She walked forward. No fear visible, just determination. The girls watched from the cabin doorway. Abigail holding her sisters, all three silent, learning that mothers fight even when fighting seems useless. Marshal Kane, Grace said. I won't go back. You can arrest me, can drag me in chains, can throw me in jail for contempt or abandonment or whatever law says I'm guilty of. But I won't walk back into that house willingly. Won't let my daughters watch me surrender to violence and call it duty. Kane's face softened. Ma'am, I understand. No, you don't. You can't. You're a man enforcing laws written by men to protect men. You've never been property, never been something owned, never had to smile while your husband breaks your bones and calls it correction. Her voice rose, carried, making sure every deputy heard, every witness. I was married at 16 to a man who promised me the world. He gave me hell instead. 3 daughters he despises. Years of violence he calls love. A life where breathing wrong meant punishment. Mrs. Harper, I'm not going back. You want me in that house, you carry me. You force me. You become the violence you claim to prevent. And every man here, every single one you live with, knowing you returned a woman to her death because law said you should. Silence. Heavy. The deputies shifted. Some looked away. Some looked at the marshal, waiting for orders. Kane removed his hat, ran his hand through gray hair. Ma'am, if I don't enforce this warrant, I lose my badge, lose my authority, lose my ability to protect anyone. You're asking me to throw away my career for principle. I'm asking you to choose between career and conscience, between what's legal and what's right, between... Grace's voice broke. Between law and life, mine, my daughters, every woman who comes after me who needs protection and gets legal papers instead. The marshal looked at Flint. This you're doing, you coaching her. No, this is all her. I'm just the fool who stood beside her. Fool's right. You know what happens next, if I ride away without her, if I let you both defy federal warrant. Kane's voice hardened. Bounty hunters come. Lawless men. They won't talk first, won't give you choices. They'll burn this cabin with all of you inside and collect their money from the ashes. Let them try. You can't stop them all. Maybe not. But I can make it cost. Make it expensive enough that $500 doesn't seem worth the risk. Kane studied him, reading, evaluating, seeing something in Flint's eyes that made him pause. You're serious. You'd die for this. Already did once, 5 years ago when my wife died. Been walking around dead since. This. He gestured at Grace. At the cabin. At the girls watching from the doorway. This is me choosing to live again, choosing to stand for something, choosing to... He stopped, started differently. My daughter lived 4 days, never got to see her grow, never got to teach her that the world could be safe, could be kind, could be worth living in. His voice roughened. Those 3 girls in that cabin, they're learning what kind of world this is, what kind of men exist in it. I'd rather die showing them some men stand against evil than live showing them evil wins, because it's legal." The marshal was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, deputies waited. Sheriff Morgan looked impatient. Pastor Reynolds looked righteous. Deputy Cole looked sick. Finally, Kane spoke. "I've been a marshal for 20 years. Enforced laws I hated. Arrested men who didn't deserve it. Returned runaway slaves before the war. Returned deserters during. Returned wives to husbands. Children to fathers. Did my duty every time, even when duty tasted like ash." He looked at Grace, at Flint, at the girls. "But I've also got discretion. Got authority to delay enforcement if circumstances require investigation. If new evidence suggests the warrant's based on false pretense." Hope flickered. Dangerous. Fragile. "What kind of evidence?" Flint asked carefully. "The kind that needs time to gather. Witness statements, medical examination, documentation of past violence." Kane's eyes were steady. "I can give you maybe a week, maybe 2 if I stretch it. But then I've got to file my report, got to make a recommendation. And if that recommendation is that Grace Harper needs protection rather than return well, that's a different legal situation entirely. You'd do that. I'd do my job, thoroughly, properly, following all procedures." The ghost of a smile. "Procedures take time." Relief hit like physical force. Grace's knees buckled. Flint caught her, held her up. Both of them shaking. Sheriff Morgan rode forward. "Marshal, with respect, you're letting personal feelings interfere with what? Sheriff, with doing a thorough investigation, with making sure justice is served properly, with following procedure." Kane's voice went cold. "Unless you're suggesting I should arrest a woman without investigating her claims of abuse, without documenting her injuries, without interviewing witnesses. That what you're suggesting?" Morgan backed down. "No, sir. Just saying Victor Harper's got rights, too. Got legal standing." "He does. And those rights will be respected. After I've done my due diligence. After I've ensured returning Mrs. Harper wouldn't constitute negligent endangerment. After I've—" Kane stopped. Looked at Grace. "After I've made damn sure I'm enforcing justice, not just law." Pastor Reynolds urged his horse forward, Bible in hand, always the Bible. "Martial scripture is clear. Wife submits to husband. This woman's defiance is sin. Returning her is godly duty." "Pastor, I enforce federal law, not biblical law. And federal law says I've got to investigate claims of abuse before enforcement, so that's what I'm doing." Kane's tone left no room for argument. "You got a problem with that, take it up with the territorial governor." The pastor opened his mouth, closed it, rode back to the pack of men. Deputy Cole spoke up. Young voice, nervous but determined. "Marshal, I was there, 2 days ago. Saw Victor drag Mrs. Harper into the street. Saw him beat her while half the town watched. That's assault, public assault. Why isn't he under arrest?" Good question. The kind that made men uncomfortable. Kane nodded slowly. "You willing to make a statement to that effect?" "Official statement." Cole glanced at Sheriff Morgan, at the other townsmen, at his own future disappearing if he testified against Victor Harper. Powerful man, connected man, man who could destroy a young deputy's career. "Yes, sir," Cole said. "I'm willing. Should have done it days ago. Should have—" His voice cracked. "Should have stopped him right then. Arrested him. Protected her. Did nothing instead. Just watched. Like everyone else." Shame rippled through the deputies, through the townsmen. The kind of shame that came from knowing you'd failed. Failed to act. Failed to protect. Failed to be the person you thought you were. Abigail's voice called from the cabin. "Mr. Cole." The deputy turned. "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you for telling the truth." Cole's face crumpled. He nodded. Couldn't speak. Just nodded. Kane looked at Flint. At Grace. I'm leaving 2 deputies here. Protection. Anyone comes for you. Bounty hunter's townsman, Victor himself, they go through federal authority first. Understood. Why? Grace whispered. Why are you helping us? The marshal's face was grim. Because 20 years ago I returned a woman to her husband. She'd run, claimed abuse, had bruises to prove it, but the law said return her. So I did, followed procedure, did my duty. He paused. Found her body 3 months later. Husband said she fell. Coroner agreed. Case closed. His eyes were haunted. I've carried her face every day since. Her name was Alice. She was 19 years old. She trusted law to protect her. Law failed. I failed. Silence. The weight of old grief, old guilt, old choices that couldn't be unmade. I can't bring Alice back, Kane continued. Can't undo what I did. But I can make damn sure I don't do it again. Can make sure law serves justice, not just paperwork. He looked at Grace. You've got 2 weeks, Mrs. Harper. 2 weeks to document everything. To gather statements. To build a case. Use them. He mounted his horse, gestured to 2 deputies. Young men, scared but determined. Mitchell, Crawford, you're staying. Set up a perimeter. Anyone approaches this property, you check them. Anyone threatens this family, you arrest them. Anyone questions your authority, you refer them to me. Clear. Yes, sir, they said in unison. The marshal looked at the remaining men. At Sheriff Morgan and Pastor Reynolds and the townsmen who'd come expecting easy compliance. We're done here. Anyone's got a problem with how I'm handling this, file a complaint. I'll be at the territorial office, writing my report, taking my time. He wheeled his horse, rode off. Most of the men followed. Sheriff Morgan lingered, face red, angry. This isn't over, Morrison. Victor's got money, got lawyers, got friends in Helena. You think one marshal's sympathy changes anything? I think it buys time. That's all I need. Time for what? For truth to matter more than money. Morgan laughed, harsh. Truth never matters more than money. You'll learn that, probably the hard way. He spat in the dirt, rode off. The yard went quiet. Just Flint and Grace, and 3 little girls and 2 young deputies who looked almost as scared as the children. Grace turned to Flint, tears streaming. We have time, 2 weeks. We can build a case, can get witnesses, can fight. Flint finished. Can fight proper, legal, the way Catherine would have wanted, the way that might actually win. The girls ran from the cabin, all 3 of them, surrounded their mother, talking at once, relief and fear and hope all tangled together. Deputy Mitchell approached. Can't be more than 20. Sir, where should we set up? Barn's defensible. Got clear sight lines. I'll show you. The young man nodded, grateful for direction, for purpose, for a chance to do right after seeing so much wrong. As Flint led them to the barn, Grace called after him. James! He turned. Thank you, for standing, for fighting, for... She stopped, started again. For being the man who didn't look away. He had no words, just nodded, kept walking. But something in his chest, that sealed place where his heart used to live, it cracked wider. Let in light, let in warmth. Let in the possibility that maybe life wasn't just about surviving. Maybe it was about choosing, about standing, about being the person you needed when no one else would. The days that followed were strange, quiet, almost normal. The deputies kept watch. Clara brought supplies and statements from townswomen willing to testify. Mrs. Weatherby came personally, brought preserved food and her own story of a first marriage that ended with bruises and broken bones. Brought names of other women, other wives, other mothers who'd survived or hadn't. A pattern emerged. Victor wasn't unique. He was common, expected, tolerated, Because law and custom and God himself apparently said husbands could correct wives, could discipline, could own. Grace documented everything, wrote her story in careful script, every beating, every threat, every moment of terror. The act of writing it down, of making it real and witnessed and undeniable, it changed something in her, made her stronger, harder, more certain. The girls adapted. Abigail helped with testimony. Charlotte drew pictures, evidence in crayon and charcoal. Beth started laughing again. Small victories, fragile healing. Flint watched it all, participated when needed, stepped back when not. Let Grace lead her own fight. Let her daughters find their own strength. He was support, foundation. The man who stood ready, but didn't take over. Nights were hardest. When darkness came and old fears returned and the weight of 2 weeks' deadline pressed down like physical force, Grace would stand at the window, watching for Victor, watching for bounty hunters, watching for the moment when temporary safety would shatter. Flint stood with her. Didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Just existed in shared space, shared vigil, shared stubborn refusal to surrender. 1 week passed, then 10 days, then 12. Marshal Kane returned on the 13th day. Brought a woman with him. Doctor. Real doctor, not the town drunk who sometimes set bones. An actual physician from Helena. Dr. Sarah Chen examined Grace. Documented injuries. Old breaks that had healed wrong. Scars that told stories. Damage that would last a lifetime. She wrote it all down. Professional. Thorough. Damning. She examined the girls, found evidence there too. Not physical violence. Not yet. But trauma. Fear. The kind of damage that didn't show in bruises, but showed in how children flinched at loud noises. At male voices. At sudden movements. Dr. Chen's report was clinical, factual, devastating. This woman has sustained repeated traumatic injury consistent with long-term physical abuse, she wrote. Returning her to the environment where these injuries occurred would constitute medical negligence and likely result in severe harm or death. I recommend immediate intervention and protection under territorial statute concerning domestic violence and child endangerment. Marshal Kane read the report. Nodded. This changes things. This gives me grounds to recommend permanent separation. To file charges against Victor Harper. He looked at Grace. To set you free. Legally. Completely. Grace's hands shook. You can do that. I can recommend it. Judge has final say. But Judge Potter owes me favors, and even if he doesn't rule in your favor immediately, this report buys you more time. Months, maybe. Long enough to... He stopped, smiled grimly. Long enough to disappear if you need to. Long enough to build a new life somewhere Victor can't find you. I don't want to run. Don't want to hide. Don't want to teach my daughters that survival means always looking over your shoulder. Then you stay. You fight. You make this public. Make it impossible for anyone to ignore. Make Victor Harper's name synonymous with coward who beats women. Kane's voice was steel. Make him the one who runs. Grace looked at Flint, question in her eyes. He understood. This was her choice, her fight, her life. He was just the man who'd given her space to make it. What do you want? He asked. I want justice. Want Victor arrested. Want every man who knew and did nothing to have to face what they allowed. Want... She stopped, breathed. Want my daughters to grow up knowing their mother fought back. Won. Lived. Then that's what we do. Marshal Kane arrested Victor Harper the next day, charged him with aggravated assault, with child endangerment, with fraud for lying to federal authorities about his conduct, with a dozen other charges that added up to years in territorial prison. The town exploded, half outraged, half relieved. The divide had been there all along, just needed someone to force the choice. Needed someone to stand and say, this is wrong and I won't tolerate it anymore. Grace testified. In public, in front of judge and jury, and townspeople who'd watched her beaten and said nothing. She testified for 2 hours, detailed, honest, unflinching. Victor's lawyer tried to break her, tried to make her seem vindictive, emotional, unstable. Tried to suggest she'd driven him to it, that she'd failed as wife, failed as mother, failed as woman. Grace didn't break, didn't waver, just told the truth. Over and over, until truth was the only thing left standing. The jury deliberated 3 hours. Came back unanimous. Guilty. On all counts. Victor was sentenced to 15 years. Hard labor. Territorial prison. Far from Redemption Creek. Far from Grace. Far from the daughters he'd despised. When the verdict came down, Grace didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. Just closed her eyes, breathed, let relief and grief and exhaustion wash over her in waves. Outside the courthouse, she found Flint waiting. He'd testified, too, about what he'd seen, about Victor's threats, about the night with torches and guns and 15 men who'd come to take back property. "It's over," she said. "It's over." What now? Flint looked at her. Really looked. Saw a woman transformed. Not by violence or by surviving. By choosing. By standing. By refusing to be victim or property or anything other than human. "Now you live," he said. "However you want. Wherever you want. With whoever you want. And if I wanted to stay here with you..." His heart stopped. Started again. Different rhythm. "I'd build you a house. A real one. With walls that held and windows that locked and space enough for 3 girls to grow. To laugh. To learn they're not disappointments. They're blessings." Grace smiled. First real smile he'd seen from her. "That sounds like home." "Yeah," Flint said. "It does." They built it together. Over months that turned to years. Added rooms as girls grew. Added barn for animals. Added garden where Grace planted vegetables and flowers both. Added fence posts marking boundaries. Marking safety. Marking the space where violence couldn't reach anymore. Abigail learned to ride. Became fierce. Became strong. Became the kind of woman who stood up for others because someone had stood up for her. Charlotte kept drawing. Her pictures changed. Less blood. Less fear. More color. More joy. More future. Beth called Flint Papa, without anyone correcting her. He answered to it, wore it like a badge, like redemption made solid. Grace married him 2 years after the trial, not because she needed to, because she wanted to. Because marriage built on choice instead of ownership was different, was partnership, was love without possession. They planted an apple tree the day they married, all 5 of them, working together, building something that would last. That would bear fruit. That would prove life could be sweet after bitter. On the hillside above the cabin, 2 graves still stood. Catherine and Lily Morrison. Flint visited them every week. Brought flowers. Told them about Grace and the girls, about choosing to live again, about finding purpose in protecting instead of grieving. He liked to think Catherine would approve, would be glad he'd finally become the man she'd always believed he could be, would be proud he'd finally learned that freezing wasn't the same as dying. That standing was how you proved life mattered. 10 years after that first morning when he heard Grace scream, Flint stood in his yard watching 3 young women, no longer girls, ride out to check the fence line. Abigail led. Charlotte sketched wildflowers. Beth sang off-key. Grace stood beside him, gray threading her hair now, laugh lines around her eyes. The kind of beauty that came from surviving and choosing to bloom anyway. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Taking us in, fighting for us, risking everything." Flint thought about it. Really thought. About the man he'd been. Dead inside. Walking through life like a ghost. About the choice he'd made. To stand. To fight. To live. "Not once," he said. "Best choice I ever made." Even though it almost killed you. Especially because of that. Because dying for something is how you prove you lived for something. Grace took his hand. They stood together, watching their daughters, watching the apple tree heavy with fruit, watching the life they'd built from broken pieces and brave choices, and stubborn refusal to let violence win. And somewhere in the distance, wolves still howled. But they didn't come close anymore, didn't threaten, didn't hunt. Because some prey fought back. Some families defended their ground. Some broken people found each other and built something stronger than either could have built alone. Home. Family. Purpose. Worth standing for. Worth fighting for. Worth living for. Always.